Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. In this video, we're going to bounce around in Saint Augustine and maybe a little bit over in Saint Augustine Beach and take a look at some of the plants that are pretty commonly used in the gardens down here. Steph and I spend a lot of time over the course of a year in the Saint Augustine area, Saint Augustine Beach. It's kind of become our place to go to the beach and just enjoy time. Holly loves the beach here and St. Augustine Beach, and some of the beaches allow dogs and some don't. This one, St. Augustine Beach, does, and so she absolutely loves it, and she gets to go there every morning. But we're going to bounce around and take a look at some of the plants. Some of these plants we've seen many times over the years, and we've just never shot a video of any of them. Some things will work in the Raleigh area where we are, and some of these things won't. That we'll see in the video. Oleander is an example of one that we can definitely try in Raleigh, and there's some great looking oleanders around the city, mostly in protected spaces. We're right on the edge of where you could reliably think about growing oleanders. There's some varieties that are definitely more cold hardy, and I honestly wouldn't know which ones those are. I'm guessing the ones that nurserymen are growing up that way have some overwintering experience with them. This one's an extremely compact growing variety, and it's not been pruned a whole lot, and it's really super compact. A lot of times we'll see them as big, basically small trees almost. The oleander down here in, I guess this is north central Florida, the coast of north central Florida, they can bloom kind of any time of the year, and there are buds on them now, even though they had a 31-degree night the other night. There's some growth on there, and they'll break out into bloom if we hit 70, for a couple of weeks for sure. There are a couple bird of paradise planted in between them, and we'll see some varying sizes on those, and those are in flower here and there around the city right now. Those are kind of being eaten by the oleander right this minute. But again, we see some color on them. Those can range in size again. This is the same thing as this oleander, where this oleander is super, super compact. Those bird of paradise can be from, these are 2.5, 3 feet, and we'll see them probably walking around here that are 15 feet tall with some flowers on them. But this is the reason I started this video in this spot, is actually this crepe myrtle. I just did a walk around tour video in the Raleigh area in our neighborhood before I left, and was talking about how some of the crepe myrtles are treated in our neighborhood in very small spaces and stuff. But this is your what a lot of people do with crepe myrtles this time of year is cut them hard like this, and then you end up with these kind of knots that form on them at the ends, and you can see this is leafing out already, which is super interesting. In our area, crepe myrtles will leaf out from this very, very late in the season. One of the last things people used to, when we sold crepe myrtles at a garden center when I was a teenager, we had a year guarantee on plants, and there was always someone that would dig up a crepe myrtle at the beginning, right in late April, and bring it in and say it was dead, and it absolutely wasn't dead. So it's just interesting how early they could actually leaf out here. They may get a frost here or there that will knock them back, and they'll have to start over again. But there's a whole line of them back over here. We'll see in just a second that same thing, that they've been cutting them for a long time like this. When we're in these urban spaces like this, I like to point out plants that can be used in narrow spaces, to create screens in narrow spaces. And there's nothing better than Potocarpus at that. This is probably Mackie Potocarpus. There are several varieties, smaller growing, larger growing. We have that Roman candle Potocarpus at the house that has the white new growth on it that you guys have seen. And then we have, what is the one with the changing mood ring Potocarpus at the house as well. This one is going to be just mostly green like this. The new growth will have a little bit of a kind of a reddish color to it. We can grow these in basically Raleigh and south, zone 7B-ish, down to zone 10. If you go to Charleston, especially in South Carolina, where the houses are closer together, this is the plant that most of the time is used to divide properties, to divide houses, to hide something from one side to the other. But you can see this is a perfect little box. You can prune these things forever like this. It's maybe 2 feet wide. I'm 6 feet tall, so if I stand up here on the curb where they are, they're like exactly 6 feet tall is where they're maintaining them. And they come through here a couple times a year and shear them right on the other side of this wall of Potocarpus are some more of those crepe myrtles. I think that Steph can move the camera around and you can see this line of crepe myrtles back here where they've cut them all down. Some of them are leafing out ahead of others, but it's in a parking lot. But this is just a nice hedge of Potocarpus. Really great plant for creating this kind of formal space that's taller. It's tall enough that you can create a screen with. This is absolutely one of our favorite trees anytime we're in this part of Florida during the winter time. This is a Bauhinia. This one's called a Hong Kong orchid. It's actually a hybrid Bauhinia, so it doesn't produce the seed pods. It's not invasive like other Bauhinia might be. Anything in this pea family can create those little pods like red buds and other things and seed themselves pretty prolifically, but this does not. And it flowers from middle fall right through winter. Anytime they got that frost the other night and it damaged a few flowers on them, but there's loaded with buds. It'll just keep blooming and blooming. One of the coolest leaves you will ever see is this deeply lobed leaf is one of the telltale signs of this tree. This is tardily deciduous. Tardily deciduous just means it loses its leaves, but it tends to hold on to them through most of the winter. And so at some point it will push off these leaves and have new foliage during the season next year. But you can see these incredible flowers. You can see why it's also called the Hong Kong orchid. And again, this was a hybrid, and I think it originated in Hong Kong, and every plant is a clone of that original plant because, again, it doesn't produce seed, which is nice, you know, because Florida does have a problem with invasive plants. You know, pretty much anything that gets brought here from anywhere in the world loves it, you know, and there's just, the place is just covered in invasive plants from top to bottom. But this is not one of the problem plants. It's one of the absolute beauties that we see occasionally here in this part of Florida. This is always a fun find out in the wild here in Florida. This is Psychotria nervosa, or wild coffee, as folks call it. This one will typically bloom in the spring and in the summer, but we'll actually sometimes down here when we typically are down here this time of year in January, and we'll see flowers on them occasionally, even this time of year. Really interesting venation in the leaves. This is a coffee relative. This plant family, Rubiaceae, has a lot of plants that are used for medicinal purposes. Of course, we're a lot of people medicating themselves with coffee, but this one is wild coffee, we call it. The plant looks very much like coffee. If you see this thing out in the wild when it has the fruit on it, you would definitely mistake it for that for sure. But again, this one's not endangered in any way, shape, or form. It's a native to Florida, and we see it pretty frequently. If Steph will back up some with the camera here, we're at an inn here on St. George Street that has a beautiful piece of landscaping out here. But one of the things to point out here is this cycad is incredibly tall. It's like 14 or 15 feet tall. These things grow super, super slow. So that thing's gotta be 50 plus years old, almost certainly. And it's got this one crazy piece that's bent over heading back toward the edge of the parking lot here. It's got the resurrection ferns are on it. It's got Christmas decorations as well, but that's one of the taller cycads we've seen here in this area. Next up, another one we see everywhere in this area are sea grapes, which are native to actually further south in here. They're actually considered zone 10 hardy, but up here in zone 9 we'll see them frequently. They can be damaged by frost. This plant gets quite tall, and it gets a grape-like fruit on it that's edible, that comparable taste to like muscadines. This is a very protected plant. It's actually in the wild illegal to dig them out, or but then people are planting them, using them in their ornamental landscapes here. The new growth on it's kind of a reddish color, and then in the winter it'll get some of this red coloration in it here where it's being is not all that happy necessarily with the some of the cooler temperatures we're having. This one's been cut quite a bit over the years to keep it as a small ornamental plant, but very interesting, very thick foliage on this one. Just an interesting plant that we see frequently. I think last year's winter, freeze that we got, that got all the way down here, did a little damage on these. A few of them that I have seen around the area that looked a little better 2 or 3 years ago have definitely had a little bit of winter damage on them. Next to that is a Kunti palm, which is not actually a palm, it's another cycad. The cycads are divided into 2 groups. That first one there showed you right there, that's in the cycad Acaceae, right there. But Florida has a native cycad right here, and this is in the Zamiaceae, the Kunti palm, which is, again, it's not a palm, it's a cycad. Cycads are ancient plants that are actually cone-bearing, where the palms have flowers and are flowering plants, or angiosperms. So it's kind of interesting, but we give them common names with palm in the name, and then of course they have a little bit of a palm look to them, and so that can kind of makes it harder to learn things sometimes in horticulture when we give things common names that don't make sense. But these are frequently used. This is again, Florida's only native cycad, and they're used frequently in landscapes here. It's a great use of a native plant. They always have this low mounding habit, 2-3 feet. 3-4 feet wide, something like that, or maintained even smaller, pretty soft to the touch. Just great looking ornamental plants, and again, a native to this area of Florida. Next up are some beautiful foxtail ferns, also very soft to the touch, like the monkey puzzle was over there. These can typically get about 2 by 2. This is about as nice a stand of them as I ever see. A lot of times they're not in, there was obviously some soil improvement here, and they're keeping it pine strawed, keeping it mulched, and they are in great shape. Again, super soft to the touch. They'll get this little red berry on them, usually quite a few more than that, so these are older, but again, really quite nice. And then next is this Ficus pumila, which we can actually grow in Raleigh. The foxtail ferns like zones 9 to 11, so we can't grow this one up in the Raleigh area, but we can grow the Ficus pumila. Ficus pumila is actually in the Moraceae, which is the same as the mulberry family, which is interesting. Mulberry relative. Has these aerial roots on it, so it will root to absolutely anything. It'll climb trees. It'll climb this stucco wall without any problem. It's very fast growing. We can get some damage on them. They're hardy in zone 8 to 11. In zone 8, that winter, last winter, killed most of them to the ground or damaged them pretty badly. But they come right back from it if they've established at all. They come right back out of the ground and cover the wall almost immediately in that one season. Again, it almost makes me want to paint the front fence white at the house and put this on here. This new growth being this striking kind of reddish color. And then it's settling into this kind of lime green and then this dark green. It's like a three colors in that plant up against this white wall. Is just unbelievable. So I'm thinking about maybe putting this on the front fence at the house and have the fence be painted white just on one section, just because it's so striking. Both of these are part shade plants typically. The Ficus pumila would definitely like to be out of the winter wind if you're in a colder area, if you're growing it in zone 8 or 9A here. So they get the perfect place in here in an urban setting to keep this from being killed to the ground, but it's beautiful. This is one we frequently see down in this area of Florida as a dianella, and this is Dianella Tasmania or something like that, I think is the, which has got a really cool species name because it's the Tasmanian flax lily is a common name for it. They'll get these blue flower spikes on them, which eventually forms a little seed up here at the top. Those blue flowers are super interesting. We have one of these at the house. The Southern Living Plant Collection has in their kind of water-wise collection for the Sunset Plant Collection, and the Southern Living Plant Collection has Dianella as well. That we have at the house. These are very marginally hardy up our way, and really this area you can put them in the ground. For us, we're gonna have to winter protect them. But I do love these Dianella. This is variegata, you know, obviously a variegated version of it. The one we have at the house is kind of a greenish blue foliage, again with this beautiful blue, delicate little blue flowers that appear on the top of them. These can be cleaned up at some point. They've got a little, once they get a little age on them, you can get in here and either cut them completely back to the ground in the late winter, but probably best just to go in here and take the individual leaves down into them, down into the plant, and let them regenerate some fresh foliage. There's lots of these very well-established crinum lilies out here. This is Crinum asiaticum, lightly fragrant. They tend to bloom, you know, this time of year when it's cooler. These things form underground. These are very hard to get out of the ground once they're well established. I would not want to have to come in here and remove these. This is a big collection around a couple of palm trees where two roads come together. They're always super, super striking. I love white flowers. I mean, you can see this all the way down the street. A lot of people are, you know, for whatever reason, I always got, you know, selling plants at the farmer's market. I'd frequently get, you know, folks that, I don't want white, I want a color. I heard that one day. But this white coloration against this dark green vertical foliage looks fantastic. But again, these can become this kind of colony like this, and they're very, very hard to remove. I've tried to dig one of these up before. They do not want to come out at all, but just absolutely beautiful, striking flowers this time of year. Again, lightly fragrant. This is a super interesting plant. This is a dietes, or dietes bicolor. This yellow with these little black dots on it, really quite beautiful. The Southern Living Plant Collection has a new one called Milky Way that's coming. It's a variegated version of this, incredibly heat tolerant, incredibly drought tolerant plants. And here they are blooming in January. We've passed by a bunch of these. These are pretty commonly used in this area, and it's such a striking pale yellow flower with those little 3 black dots on every flower, and you can see how many buds there are. As fast as one of these finishes flowering, another one comes up beside it and takes its place on any of these kind of mild days during the winter time. Next up is bottlebrush. These can come in all shapes and sizes. Here they are blooming in the winter time, but they'll bloom most of the summer as well. There are honeybees all over these this morning. Hummingbirds love them. Pretty much any pollinator that's active on, you know, whatever day. It's this morning. I've had a couple cold nights since we've been here in Saint Augustine, and this overnight it warmed up, and so it's about 60 right now, and the honeybees are just all over it. Beautiful plant. It's in the myrtle family, and you can kind of feel that in its leaves and how the foliage looks on them. Again, lots of varieties. We'll see these as single trunk specimens like these, just, you know, on standards, and then pruned down as small shrubs, all different types of different ways. Typically you'll get this weeping habit up in the top of the plant, whether it's a shrub or whether it's a larger growing tree that's just produced tons of nectar. These are Australian natives. They're salt tolerant, and so we're only, you know, 15 feet from the water right here as we're standing here, and they don't have any problem with that. It's one of the things people have to think about in this area. A lot of the plants I'm showing you kind of have to be salt tolerant from all the dogs walking around, and from, you know, the water. Literally the whole city is, you know, surrounded by water. But bottlebrush, always a big standout. There's zone 8B hardy, and I will see the occasional use of one, you know, up in our area, but they got to be in a really super protected space in order to do that. Found a farfugium, or tractor seat plant. This is the giant farfugium. You can see the flowers still on it. For sure, our 16, 17 degree night that we had since we left Raleigh has nuked ours to the ground. They absolutely become mush, similar to how hosta do, but it'll come right back out of that. Looks beautiful all season long, and then gets these incredible yellow flowers on it in the fall and early winter, and the pollinators can take advantage of it. Of course, down here in Florida, it just continues to look good right through the winter. Sometimes we get lucky enough to talk to the homeowner of the house. This is just a few blocks from a lake over here that flooded back in October, and some of the things here, some of the things are salt tolerant, some aren't. I'll show you one around the corner that's not, but these hibiscus come through with flying colors. You know, anything in this mallow family has that beautiful center place. We can grow, of course, we have native hibiscus up in North Carolina that go dormant, die back all the way to the ground, and then, you know, these tropical hibiscus aren't hardy enough to be up there. And then there's a lot of things in the hibiscus family. Rosa Sharon is an example of something that's in the in that family that you can grow in much colder areas. But of course, it's a shrub and it's asleep right now. And here we are in January with them in flower. These Thai plants are always incredibly showy. The color of this house is kind of a teal color over here, and it's really matches. And then right in front of that, you get the firecracker plants that bloom like crazy. Those got knocked down to the ground, and they've already put on that much growth since that October flood. Here's a beautiful planting of blue days, and this is one we see frequently. It just blooms and blooms. These park shade areas in this kind of, you know, I haven't even mentioned all the live oaks with the Spanish moss in them all over the place, but it keeps the area kind of park shaded during the day. And this blue days just does absolutely fantastic. This did not survive though the little bit of 1 foot water. They had about a 1 foot of water come through this garden back in October, and it kills this completely. So this has been replanted and has already reestablished itself very quickly. But it's always this beautiful blue underplanting that we frequently see in these gardens in this area. I figured we would find the giant bird of paradise as well. These can get 20 to 30 feet in height, probably 10 feet in width, something like that. And we see the little ones as well. This has the white flowers on it. I think this genus is Strelitzia. Absolutely beautiful plants, and they just can absolutely, there's nothing more tropical looking than that, right? And here's an open flower, and another one in the process of opening beside it. You know, have a banana-like leaf on them. That flat growth is the dead giveaway on these. You see how that grows in almost like a little flat panel all the way down to the ground. Absolutely beautiful. Nothing says tropical more than these giant birds of paradise. We stopped at the Memorial Presbyterian Church, which is one of the prettiest buildings in the city of Saint Augustine for sure. These are arboricola or arbicola. I've always said arbicola. I'm probably butchering the name a little bit. This variegated arbicola that you see all over this area. They're always so striking. I wanted to film these in particular though, because you will get some reversion in these occasionally where you'll just get the green showing up in them. That stuff needs to be cut out pretty quick when you see it. Of course, these are old, they've been pruned a lot in this space over the years, but you can see how showy the variegation is on these. And then this time of year, typically we'll see these kind of orange berries on them. Behind it is another variegated plant we'll frequently see used here. This is Jack Frost ligustrum. I grew these at my nursery for years. So this one will grow in Raleigh and south down to this area. It's a variegated ligustrum that's super striking. Adds a lot of interest into this space. There's Liriope, then the Jack Frost ligustrum, and then there's a hedge of dwarf Yopon hollies on the other side of it. There's a lot of different crotons being used out here, and where we use a Cuba up our way for this spotted variegated plants, they'll have crotons down here in this area. Then there's a big stand of shell ginger back here around that flag. It's a really beautiful little planted space out there. Of course, they're using the blue days. There's some oleander out there. There's all kinds of things that'll be blooming at different times of the year out here in this church gathering area, really, right outside the front door. I'm gonna wrap the video up in a restaurant parking lot that has a beautiful landscape with some of the things all kind of put together in this space. Potocarpus being used as a wall over here, and a couple other spaces where they're creating a private garden that we'll see in just a minute. But it's just the perfect plant for that if you're in an area where you can actually grow it. This one we haven't found until right now. This is called a cardboard palm, but it's another cycad, and so it's not an actual palm. And where the Kunti palm was native to Florida, this one's native to Mexico, but this is also in that Zambiaceae. And if you're touching it like I am right now, you'll know why it's called a cardboard palm. I mean, it really is very rigid feel to it. There's a Florida sunshine Elysium back here. Of course, this time of year has those pinkish red stems on it, and just really great growth. It's out here in a little bit of sun, and you see that little bit of bleaching on top. Ours is in a little more shade at the house, and so it doesn't get quite as much of that that kind of burning that you would get on top of it. There's some ground cover roses out here that don't look their best, but of course here in Florida in January they're still in bloom. And then coming over here to the other side of the driveway, lots more of that blue days. You can, at both entrances, and you just see this used all over the place, and it just that really intense blue coloration. Again, the Potocarpus as a wall. There's some sort of citrus here, and I can see some small oranges on the other side of this little patio, but you see how these Potocarpus, and then dianella that we talked about earlier in the video, which is that flax lily. Again, it would have bloomed a few months back, and it's finished up now, but that variegation is, always super, super striking. And then again, continuing with this wall of Potocarpus, and there's a seating area on the other side of this, a little outdoor seating area for the restaurant, and it's the perfect plant for that. And I'll wrap the video up with a variegated shell ginger. This is one of the plants that we see, very, very frequently down here. It's so colorful, always just an incredible pop of color. And we can actually grow, at the Cape Fear Botanic Garden down in Fayetteville, North Carolina. There's some of these in up in a corner area there. If we're in a protected space, we can actually grow this plant in our area. And in fact, several of the things that are right here in this little section that I just showed off are hardy up into Zone 8A, where we are in Raleigh, North Carolina. So there you go. There's some of the interesting things that we see down here in the Saint Augustine area. Let me know down below this video if you like this type of video, because typically when we travel, this is what Steph and I do. We get on the bicycles, we ride around everywhere, we see some interesting plants. Sometimes sometimes it's new to us, sometimes it's not, and we'll spend some time with them over 2 or 3 years, getting to know that plant. I love coming to places like this. I don't have to have everything in my garden. I don't have to force everything to live in our garden space, because I can come down to a place like this and see kind of a tropical wonderland here in St. Augustine, Florida. Thanks for watching.